Hello, my grade 7 students. This is our second quarter health lesson in competencies 1 to 8. Nutrition for a healthy life during adolescence. And our most essential learning competencies for this lesson are: identifies the right foods during adolescence. Weeks 2 to 3 follows the appropriate nutritional guidelines for adolescents for healthful eating. Next is describes the characteristics, signs and symptoms of malnutrition and micronutrient deficiencies. Next discusses ways of preventing and controlling malnutrition and micronutrient deficiencies. Next explains the characteristics, signs and symptoms of eating disorders. Next discusses ways of preventing and controlling eating disorders. And the last one applies decision-making and critical thinking skills to prevent nutritional problems of adolescents. Nutrition needs vary for each stage of life, so it is very important to cut a healthy diet through all life stages. Adolescence is one of the fastest growth periods in a person's life. And now, to achieve your full growth potential, proper food selection and eating are very essential. You must know your physical need for food and follow the dietary guidelines appropriate for your age. Sometimes it feels like you don't have anything to eat but that ice cream in the fridge or that hamburger from yesterday. But now you want something sweet. And you're thirsty now. We all know that this happens to us every now and then. After eating all that junk food, you start feeling, well, not so good. Which is why it is important to maintain a healthy diet. You need nutrients to function properly. Proteins, carbs, and fats from nutrients provide our body's energy sources, also known as calories. Your body receives protein from fish, meat, dairy, and poultry. Carbs provides energy for your bones and muscles. Teenager gets carbs in foods like bread, pastas, fruits, and vegetables. Fats needed for growing body. Good fats included avocado, peanut butter, and fatty fish. You also need vitamins such as vegetables and other fruits. Hydration for teens is also very important, but sugary drinks are not always the best way to go. Water is the best way to go. According to NPR, teens aren't getting enough water and some aren't getting any. We are all required to get 7 to 10 cups of water every day. Our activity 1, you have to make your own diet plan. Each of you will make at least one healthy diet plan. The food selection must be budget-friendly, healthy, and easy to make. Each of you must follow a certain criteria in making your diet plan. You will write this in a short band paper. Criteria: availability of food 15%, nutritional facts or food 25%, originality of the output is 10%, a total of 50%. The growth spurt during adolescence creates increased demand for energy and nutrients. As an adolescent, your total nutrient needs are higher at this stage than at any other stage in your life cycle. For bone development, you need extra calcium. Teenage boys and girls have high demands of iron due to growth spurt. The onset of menstruation among girls also increases the need for iron. Boys ages 30 to 15 need 71 grams of protein daily, while girls need 63 grams daily. Bodybuilding food is protein-rich, necessary for the growth and development of your body, especially your bones and muscles. Your body uses energy from carbohydrates to perform every task you do. Following a certain guidelines will help you choose a balanced and healthful diet. Number 1. Eat a variety of foods every day. Number 2. Consume fish, lean meat, poultry, or dried beans. Eating this will give you protein, vitamin B, iron, and zinc. These foods may contain high levels of fats, but choosing lean meat and poultry without skin and limiting the egg yolks, nuts, and seeds can help limit fat intake. Eat more vegetables, fruits, and root crops. Vegetables and fruits are rich in vitamins and minerals, and some are high in fiber. Number 4. Consume milk products, and other calcium-rich foods such as small fish and dark leafy vegetables. Number 5. Eat clean and safe food. It is important to handle and prepare food safely by observing cleanliness. Wash hands and use clean utensils in preparing and cooking food. And number 6. For a healthy lifestyle and good nutrition, exercise regularly, do not smoke, and avoid drinking alcoholic beverages. The food guide pyramid will guide you on how many servings from each food group is recommended daily. There are 6 food groups in the food guide pyramid. The serving requirements of each individual depend on age, sex, size, and activity level. Each day we need to eat at least the lowest serving from each of the food groups. This is to meet the daily requirements of vitamins, minerals, protein, fiber, and carbohydrates of an individual. So now class, let's hear the expert about food pyramid.
For healthy living, we should have a healthy and balanced diet. A healthy or balanced diet is a diet that contains the right amounts of all the food groups. Food pyramid. Grains forms the base of the food pyramid. Grains. Daily caloric intake come from grains. Grains that a person eats daily are rice, wheat, quinoa, oats, barley. These are used to make food like bread, cereals, chapati, pasta. Try to use whole grains food. They are prepared using the entire grain, including the hull or outer shell. They provide more nutrition. Refined grain food has poor nutritional value because the hull of the grain is removed during the refining process. Grains are rich in carbohydrate. It gives energy for our body. Above grains comes the fruits and vegetables. Fruits. A balanced diet also includes plenty of fruits. It is better to eat whole fruit instead of its juice. Fruits are a good source of vitamins, minerals, and fiber. Vegetable. The vegetable group includes leafy greens like kale, spinach, cabbage, lettuce. Red or orange vegetables like carrot, beetroot. Starchy vegetables like potato, topeka. Legumes like beans and peas. Other vegetables such as eggplant, lady's finger, capsicum, broccoli, etc. Vegetables are a good source of vitamins, minerals, and fiber. We can eat vegetables raw or cooked. It is important to remember that cooking vegetables removes some of their nutritional value. At the top of fruits and vegetables comes the protein and dairy products. Protein. It includes meat, fish, egg, beans, peas, legumes, and nuts. These foods are rich in protein and also has fat. Dairy. It includes milk, yogurt, cheese, butter. It is rich in calcium, fat, and protein. At the top of the pyramid is the oil, salt, and sugar items. Only very less amount of this should be consumed. A healthy diet should include a varied selection of foods in proper quantity. Fill a quarter of your plate with grains, for example brown rice, wholemeal bread, rolled oats. They are called energy-giving food. Fill a quarter of your plate with protein food like meat, poultry, seafood, eggs, nuts, beans, tofu. They are called bodybuilding food. Fill half your plate with fruit and vegetables. Vegetables and fruits are called health-giving food. Along with this, add dairy products like milk, yogurt, cheese. Drink plenty of water, at least 6 to 8 glasses a day. It helps to keep our body hydrated. The greatest wealth is health. So follow balanced diet and stay healthy.
So class, let's stay healthy. And for now, let's talk about signs of vitamin C deficiency. And now, let's talk about the nutritional problems among adolescents. Based on the same survey, these are the reasons why adolescents are undernourished. Number 1, poor eating practices habits. Number 2, poor food choices and intakes often influenced by peers and the media. Number 3, becoming conscious of the kinds of amounts of food they eat. Females tend to eat less because of fear of becoming fat. Number 4, school canteens and cafeterias serving less nutritious foods like chips, carbonated beverages, and artificial fruit juices. Number 5, not fond of drinking milk, which is a good source of nutrients. Low intake of iron and vitamin C rich foods resulting in iron deficiency. So for now, class, let's discuss the characteristics, signs, and symptoms of eating disorders. Teenagers who have eating disorders usually have a family history of weight problems, depression, or substance abuse. In this case, they need professional help. Anorexia nervosa is an eating disorder characterized by self-imposed starvation leading to excessive weight loss. Bulimia is a disorder in which the clearing of digestive tract follows cycles of overeating. The last one disorder is the binge eating disorder, is characterized by compulsive eating. People who indulge in compulsive eating consume a large amount of food at one time, but they do not eliminate it. Binge disorder may be an indicator that the person uses food to cope with depression or strong emotions.
In the DSM-5, we're going to be talking about anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, and binge eating disorder. We're going to be doing a comparison of these three disorders on the last slide with a Venn diagram that helps you differentiate these three disorders and helps you keep them straight, helps you identify the unique points about each disorder, and this should help with identifying which disorder is being described on an exam. Before we begin, we have a bit of epidemiology here. We have a world map showing the deaths due to eating disorders per millions in 2012. And you can kind of see the prevalence of eating disorders across the world in different countries. And it seems like Western countries like the United States and Western Europe, as well as Australia and Brazil, have higher rates of eating disorders that lead to death. Let's start with anorexia nervosa. The main premise behind anorexia nervosa is that a person has a preoccupation with their weight and body image, and this results in low food absorption. So a person has low caloric intake, resulting in a low BMI. They have a BMI less than 18.5. Now, how do you get low food absorption? How do you get low caloric intake? There's two ways for that to happen. There's the restrictive type, where a person severely limits their food intake. If they don't eat food, then obviously they won't absorb food, and they'll have low caloric intake. The next subtype is the binge eating / purging type, where somebody eats and then they follow that eating with compensation. And of course, your mouth has, or your GI tract has an in and an out. In through your mouth, out through your bottom. You can remove food from either end of your GI tract. So you can induce vomiting, you can induce diarrhea with a laxative, and you can also over-exercise to kind of purge the food that you take. So either way, a person has a low BMI either by restricting the food that they take or binge eating followed by purging. Anorexia often coexists with perfectionism. A lot of times these patients are the student who gets amazing grades and is a really good gymnast, or a really athletic person who always maintains their low body weight and is very fit and is always in shape. Of course, anorexia can also coexist with depression. There are several associated medical issues with being very thin, as in anorexia nervosa. Some of these are obvious, like starvation, but there's also nutritional deficiencies that can lead to osteoporosis, which can lead to more bone fractures. Women have no periods after a while. The body shuts down that mechanism and prevents menstruation. Anemia, of course, when you don't get iron, you get all kinds of electrolyte disturbances, and this is most prominent when you refeed as well. You want to monitor electrolytes and look for hypophosphatemia in refeeding syndrome when treating somebody with anorexia nervosa. A quick way to remember that hypophosphatemia is associated with refeeding is because when you're refeeding, the body's making more ATP. And if you're making more ATP, you're going to have to use phosphate groups, leading to hypophosphatemia. So that's a quick way to remember that electrolyte disturbance with refeeding. Body also goes into a hypothyroid state. It's called euthyroid 6 syndrome, and this is a little unusual from other hypothyroidism because you have a low T3 and T4 as you'd expect, but you also have a low or normal TSH. So the body is purposely lowering the basal metabolic rate because there are less nutrients, there's less energy for the body to use, so the body's toning down basal metabolic rate. If a person is pregnant, of course you can have prematurity in pregnancy as well as intrauterine growth restriction. To treat anorexia nervosa, you mainly want to do psychotherapy. You can often admit patients if they're very sick and very low BMIs. Some studies have shown that a low dose olanzapine, which is an atypical antipsychotic, can also be effective. It's unclear whether the antipsychotic effects of olanzapine is what's doing the trick, or if it's the metabolic syndrome side effect of olanzapine that's working. It's important to note that SSRIs do not work in anorexia. They do work in bulimia, but SSRIs rely on serotonin to change the workings of the brain, and serotonin is made from tryptophan. So if a person is nutritionally deficient, they're not getting tryptophan, they can't make serotonin, so SSRIs will not work. Next is bulimia. We're going to go a little faster now. Bulimia is defined by binge eating followed by compensatory behavior, so it has some similarities with anorexia. Compensatory behavior, in this case, can be a purge type, where a person eats and then induces vomiting, induces diarrhea with a laxative, or takes a diuretic to pee. In the purge type, specifically vomiting, there's a lot of signs and symptoms that can give away that a person is inducing vomiting. This is like teeth and enamel erosion. You could see up here that this person's teeth have eroded, and their enamel on the top of their mouth has eroded in that area as well. Esophageal tears can also occur. Parotitis, which is inflammation of your parotid salivary glands, can occur, and a person might have thickened knuckles from inducing vomiting with their fingers. When they put their fingers in the back of their throat to make themselves vomit, they can build a callus on their knuckles, and that's a sign of purging. There's also a non-purge type in bulimia, and that would be excess exercise and diet, just like we saw in anorexia. The one key difference between bulimia and anorexia is that patients with bulimia are normal weight or overweight. That means that their BMI is greater than 18.5. To treat bulimia nervosa, again, you want to do psychotherapy. You can admit patients, that's less common with bulimia, but outpatient psychotherapy is common. SSRIs are effective, so for instance, fluoxetine would work. Medication bupropion is another antidepressant. This is contraindicated in bulimia as well as anorexia because it lowers the seizure threshold. And in a person who induces vomiting or doesn't eat or eats too much, they have all kinds of electrolyte disturbances that can cause seizures. And if a person is already predisposed to seizures because of that, you don't want to further lower the seizure threshold with bupropion. Next is binge eating disorder. Binge eating disorder is similar to bulimia in that there's binge eating, but this is without compensatory behavior. So bulimia was binge eating with compensatory. Binge eating is binge eating without compensatory behavior. So this, again, does not fit the qualifications of bulimia. To be diagnosed with binge eating disorder, you need at least 3 of the following, which describe binge eating. You need to eat quickly, eat alone out of embarrassment, eat until uncomfortably full, binge eat even when you're not hungry, and feelings of guilt, depression, or disgust after eating. Patients with binge eating disorder, as you might imagine, are often overweight, and they therefore can suffer from metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease, and diabetes, like you would normally see in the overweight population. Treatment here is psychotherapy again. You obviously want to prescribe a strict diet and exercise regime. You can use stimulants that have been shown to help to suppress that appetite, and orlistat, which is a pill for obese people that that inhibits pancreatic lipase, essentially prevents you from digesting and absorbing fat and kind of makes you poop out all your fat. That might also help in people with binge eating disorder. This last slide I think is most helpful, helps you compare the three disorders and kind of see what's unique about them. For instance, in anorexia, that's the only one that has a low BMI. Anorexia, again, is low food absorption, either by restricting your diet or eating and then purging. Low BMI is what's unique. Bulimia nervosa is binging, then purging, and then binge eating disorder is binging without the purge. Treatments for all of them include psychotherapy, and all of them can contain binge eating. And that's important to note because you cannot use binge eating as a differentiating factor. Treatment that's specific to bulimia is SSRIs. Again, that doesn't work in anorexia because you don't have tryptophan to make the serotonin. Both anorexia and bulimia can have compensatory behavior and the signs of vomiting, like we saw, thickened knuckles, eroding teeth, eroding enamel, esophageal tears, and swollen parotid glands. Bupropion is also contraindicated in both of these because you have electrolyte disturbances, and bupropion reduces that seizure threshold. And bulimia and binge eating disorders have a high or normal BMI. So this Venn diagram could help you keep these three disorders straight when you have a question regarding them. This has been a short video on anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating disorders, the three eating disorders. There are a couple other things in the DSM-5 regarding eating disorders like pica, but those are less likely due to a primary psychiatric cause.
Now let's talk about the ways of preventing and controlling eating disorders.
I was convinced I was fat, even though my family kept telling me I wasn't. I was hospitalized after I broke my leg. At that point, my anorexia was pretty severe, and I was in trouble. I entered a treatment program, and finally I'm starting to get better.
I felt empty and worthless. I ate all the junk food I could, and then I felt disgusting, so I made myself vomit. This went on for years. With the help of my parents, I was finally truthful to my doctor. I started CBTE. It was hard work, but I have my life back.
These are the voices of people who got treatment and found relief from the intense and distressing symptoms of their feeding and eating disorders. There are effective treatments for the three primary feeding and eating disorders, including medication. Binge eating disorder, or BED, is diagnosed when people eat large amounts of food in a short time. People with BED experience guilt about their eating and feel out of control. The most effective and best studied treatments for BED are enhanced cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBTE, and interpersonal therapy, or IPT. Both help people control their binge eating, maintain a healthy body weight, work on relationships, and manage their distress. Medications can also be helpful, especially if used in combination with CBTE or IPT. Vyvanse seems to help people change their behaviors. Because it is a stimulant, it can be addictive and have side effects, so it should be monitored by a physician. Other medications that can help include SSRI antidepressants and the anticonvulsant topiramate, which seems to help with binge eating and the thoughts that accompany it. People with bulimia nervosa binge eat, but they also compensate with purging, like intentional vomiting, using laxatives, or excessive exercise. The best treatment for bulimia is a combination of either CBTE or IPT, plus an SSRI antidepressant. These medications, specifically fluoxetine or Prozac, seem to change chemicals in the part of the brain that affect distorted thoughts seen in bulimia. They help people regain control over their binging and purging behaviors. People with anorexia nervosa restrict the food they eat and are significantly underweight. They often have untrue thoughts about their bodies and weight. If untreated, anorexia can cause serious medical problems and can even lead to death. Treatment for anorexia nervosa usually involves a team approach, including nutritional support and either CBTE or IPT. The team works toward helping people with anorexia gain weight safely while changing their distorted thinking about food and their bodies. Medication is not shown to effectively treat anorexia nervosa. Feeding and eating disorders affect people's relationships, sense of self, and hope for the future. They can cause significant medical problems and even lead to death. But with the proper treatment, including medical and nutritional support, CBTE or IBT, and medication for binge eating disorder and bulimia, they don't have to last forever. People can recover.
So class, here's how to cope with stress. Find alternative ways to handle stress and other feelings without food. You can do exercises, meditation, or simple breathing exercises. Take 3 regular meals and choose healthy snacks. Do not skip meals as this often leads to binge eating later in the day. Take your breakfast, then have a balanced lunch and dinner on scheduled mealtime. If you will take a snack in between, be sure to choose healthy snacks. Now let's have the activity 2. Answer the following questions. How would you know if a person is bulimic? What are the symptoms of anorexia nervosa? Cite some signs of binge eating disorder. And what is the importance of knowing characteristics, signs, and symptoms of eating disorders? Now let's have the activity 3 with your performance. Prepare a healthy meal following the food pyramid. Just choose one. It's either breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Vlog while preparing your meal and explain the minerals and nutrients that we can get of the food you prepare. Follow this criteria. Explanation 50%, right food preparation 30%, and content 20%, a total of 100%. Hope you learned a lot from our lesson for today, class. Remember, health is wealth. See you in our next class!